Now, how long had the meat packers been doing this revolutionary thing? Oh, 30 or 40 years. You see, you couldn't even compete as a meat packer without the overhead rail, the hook, and the disassembly line. Henry Ford invented neither the automobile nor the assembly line. He simply had the good sense to search for revolutionary ideas outside his own industry. Step 1, find a parallel but unrelated business which has similar defining characteristics to the business for which you're trying to develop an innovation model. Step 2, look at how this parallel business overcame the obstacle that you face. Step 3, adapt their proven technology to your own business category. We call this business problem topology. Now, my second example of business topology comes to us from my favorite CEO of any Fortune 500 company. That would be Stephen Sanger of General Mills. You see, Stephen Sanger, when he took over the leadership of General Mills, had a very unique problem. By the way, if you do the math, General Mills does something like $21 million an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. His problem was that the machines that make Oreos and Cheerios and Bisquick, whenever he went from one product to another, had to be reconfigured. And this took anywhere from 5 to 6 hours. Now, how long do you want your manufacturing plant shut down when your company does roughly $21 million an hour? And so Stephen Sanger gathered together all of his plant engineers and he gave them tickets to the Indianapolis 500 because using business problem topology, Stephen said, who has a problem like mine? Who has a need to reconfigure complex mechanical things quickly? He told his plant engineers to go to the Indy 500, but not to watch the race, but to study the pit crews, to monitor their every move from the moment they first stepped into the pits until the race was over and they packed up their stuff to leave. They returned home and reduced the time to go from Oreos to Cheerios to Bisquick from roughly 5 to 6 hours to only 27 minutes. Business problem topology. Saving General Mills about $90 million every time they switch from one product to the next. Stephen Sanger, by the way, has a college degree in history. In other words, he said, I know I've seen this movie before, I just can't remember how it ends. And then he said, aha, I saw this problem faced during the Indianapolis 500. There is where I'll find my answer. A history degree. One of the students of Wizard Academy, Joe Schaefer.
So in the front row of the Magical Worlds curriculum, we went through this briefly, went through it very, very quickly, but he got it. When he came back for another course, he said something to me that made me very, very proud. Just felt like I was walking on air. Joe Schaefer runs a small chain of martial arts studios, specifically Kung Fu. I think he has 6 of them in 6 different towns. And the reason I was so proud of Joe is because he did not do what everybody else had done before him. Normally, whenever I try to teach this to students, the first thing somebody says is, I'm in the such and such industry. What would be a parallel business to mine? Well, number one, you're not looking for the parallel business to the industry. You're looking for an industry that has a parallel problem to the problem you face. If you have 8 different problems, you might seek wisdom from 8 different and unrelated industries. It's the problem and the defining characteristics of the problem that tell you where to go looking for the solution. Joe didn't say any of that goofy stuff. He understood it was his job to analyze his own situation, not mine, unless I'm being paid for it. The next time I saw him, however, he said, you know what I did? He said, I pondered what you taught us in that session, and it occurred to me, the defining characteristic of the martial arts business is that no matter how much you tell your student that it's going to be 6 months before they really start feeling good about this decision they made to start doing martial arts. He says all of the benefits, they're really not going to feel that good about it for about 6 months. If they make it to 6 months, we're home free, they're in for life, they're feeling good, they're looking good, they're confident and all these other things, you know, and the weight loss and all the different benefits that you get. He says, but no matter how much they promise you they're going to stick with it, They start coming and they evaluate whether or not they're ever going to come back based on each evening's class. And so every time they come, they're making a decision about whether or not they're going to keep coming. And he goes, it's the big problem I face. Everybody in my industry faces it. But Joe Schaefer was unwilling to say, well, it's therefore standard. And if 70% of your people drop out and only 65% of my people drop out, well, boy, howdy, I'm the winner. He said, no. Who has ever faced this problem and really figured out how to overcome it? And he said, the diet industry. Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, all Metabolos, Metabolife, all those people in weight loss that figure out some way. And by the way, weight loss would be what, about 10,000 times bigger as an industry than martial arts? And weight loss is a very highly sophisticated industry with billions of dollars changing hands. So what trade convention did Joe Schaefer go to next? What magazines did he start subscribing to? The diet industry stuff. The people in the diet industry. And he says, it's unbelievable how adaptable their solutions are to my situation. Look at what they've already figured out, tested, refined, and proven. And borrow it, import it. You look like this revolutionary genius in your industry. We're talking about strategy. We're not talking about copy. Now that you've decided where you're going to go, there are some limiting factors. There's some things holding you back. There are some problems. You don't have to come up with a new solution to these problems. You find somebody who already found the solution. And then you import it from this totally unrelated industry or business model into your industry or business model.
And then there's my friend Brett Feinstein. Brett is a political consultant, a dangerous one to tell you the truth. I don't want to tell you specifically what Brett has done to shift the balance of power in Congress, but strategy is what wins, not just good ad writing. Brett shared with me recently that there is one thing that all political consultants have in common, but it's a characteristic that he himself does not share, and it's this. Political consultants tend to look at a race as a game of chess. But Brett said, no, that's a bad example. You see, Roy, in a game of chess, both opponents have all of the information available to them. They both are looking at the same board with the same pieces. But in the World Championship of Poker, 2 cards down, 3 cards up, 2 more cards down. And he said, Roy, in that game, part of the information is available to you, but not to your opponents. Part of the information is available to your opponents. The cards that they hold are not available to you. Then there's the cards face up in the middle of the table that anyone can play. Information that's known to all parties. He said that is a model for politics. And using poker strategy, Brett became one of the winningest political consultants in the history of politics in the United States. How serious is he about refining these skills? Well, in the off-season, you're likely to see him in Reno, Las Vegas, or New Orleans playing professional poker with the big boys, so that he knows how to tell what cards the opponent is or is not holding simply by watching what cards they play. Business topology, unbelievably flexible, malleable, and powerful. Please know that there can be many parallel businesses to yours, each one a parallel business in only one opportunity or obstacle category. Each of the defining characteristics of your business may lead you to a different parallel business to determine how they overcame that obstacle.
And this school, Wizard Academy, was built upon the idea that we're not the only people that ever wanted to change how others think and feel. Our goal is to teach you how to alter the way people think and feel. The Magical Worlds curriculum, which is the one that will never be put on videotape, is the curriculum where we study all of the people in the history of the world that made the biggest impact on how we think and how we feel, but they did it not through advertising or even through making speeches. We don't study politicians and we don't study advertising professionals. We study the painters, and the composers and the novelists and the poets and the photographers whose work dramatically changed the way we think and how we feel. They changed our perspective and our mood and our attitude in a big way very quickly. And those people, very often, the ones who are the giants in the land, explained exactly how they did it. And if you believe and can accept that the way Monet painted Impressionism can be done with words, and the way that Beethoven composed a symphony or a concerto can be done in words, and that they're willing to explain it to you. And most of them, in fact, did explain it to their students. But the only people who ever read the words of Monet are other painters. They didn't want to copy Monet. They wanted to be their own painter. And the only people that ever studied the words of the great photographers were other photographers. But if as a writer, if as a business strategist, if as a business consultant, you say, wait a minute, these other people did the same thing I want to do. They changed how the world thought and how the world felt and the world's attitude about certain things. The fact that they did it in the language of music, or the fact that they did it through poetry, or the fact that they did it through this best-selling novel, or the fact that they did it through this photograph, a Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph. How did they do it? What was their technique? Can it be deconstructed so that we can do in advertising, in words,